by you, isn't it?
For you're talking to Lorette?
To Phil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's already midnight here, but yeah, we are live, I believe. So hello, warm greetings from Let Us Talk It team. So we appreciate you, everyone, especially our guest speaker, for joining this initiative and willingness to share their uh, hard-earned experience and to where they are now in their field of expertise. So we will hear from them with the topics that they chose to share with us. And this Zipinar is made possible by Cogent Integrated Business Solutions. So they're an IT company and based in Detroit, Michigan, United States. And this Zipinar is available to any part of the world as long as you have the time. You know, the time difference is the only thing that's stopping this to have more people to interact with. But anyhow, if you miss this live session, there will be a recorded part uploaded on YouTube afterwards. So you can check that one out. Let us talk it on our on YouTube as well. So you can just search that. So my
Great.
name is Phil. I'm part of Cogent team, and we'll be hosting this webinar today for Let Us Talk It. And before we go in introducing the first topic that we have today, um, again, thank you so much for looking forward. Last Wednesday, I invited a lot of people to check for this Wednesday. Definitely, we are looking forward for more attendees right now, especially in YouTube as well. So, hoping you'll interact with our speakers. So, okay, going forward, the topic that we are to talk for the first part is harness the energy to lead. So, this talk provides insight on how today's leaders can benefit from identifying and leveraging energy more effectively to lead more successfully. Personal energy and team energy in ways that push normal limits. And to talk with this topic is Marian Grazier Kunkin. And also, she is just been leading teams to develop and deliver technical solutions as a consultant for most of the years. Marian has been in many environments and has worked with many people who identify as leaders. And unfortunate trend relates to lazy leadership, or what she calls as super managers, not creating an environment of energy to supercharge and propel today's teams and organizations to greatness. And our first speaker today is a servant leader and change coach. And to talk a little bit about her, let me introduce to you Maureen Kunkin.
Thank you, Phil. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, good day, wherever you guys are joining from. I really appreciate being here today, Phil, and I thank you for the opportunity. And I think Let's Talk IT as well and Cogent IBS. That said, I know we're a little bit behind, so I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to talk a little bit quickly because I do have a lot of slides. There's a lot of information even behind what I'm going to talk to today. So if anybody wants to dive even deeper after today, please feel free to reach out with the contact information that's in the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and jump right in. Oops. So harness the energy to lead. And let me close this down. Everyone, I think, is familiar with Robin Williams. If you don't keep pushing the limits, you're going to wake up one day and you're the center square to block. We want to keep pushing limits as leaders. I think it's our responsibility to help change the world and move in directions of greatness, not just for ourselves, but for the teams that we're leading. I'm jumping right in, though. A bit of an outline. We're going to go through a quick introduction. We're going to talk about leadership energy and their sources, quick introduction as well as in team energy and their sources. We're going to talk about energy drains. They exist both for you and the team and what some of the traditional ones are. Team dysfunction, and really what we're trying to do is harness the energy to lead not just ourselves, but the teams and the people, depending upon what it is that we're leading. Today's focus is around IT, but there's this conversation and all of the topics applies to any type of leadership, even family leadership, sports leadership. We'll talk about some examples of low and high. Then we'll talk about being and leading the change, final tips and takeaways and acknowledgements. So it's going to be a pretty quick conversation as we go through. And that's why I mentioned if you do want to dive deeper, just please feel free to reach out. And I'd be happy to dive right in. Phil mentioned a little bit about my background. Here, I'm not going to dive in, but here are some of the credentials that provide me with the ability to feel pretty confident about what I'm speaking of today in terms of energy related to leadership and what really drives the teams to be successful. So I'm going to go past that, but quite a bit of environments, industries, teams, projects, companies, etc. Lots of different variety. Energy. We all know what energy is, but to kind of just level set, physics defines energy as the property that could be transferred to a system or body and is noticeable in the form of heat, light, and work. Webster's defines this as energy for the ability to be active, strength of body or mind to do things or to work. And that's really where kind of we're going to leap into from a leadership focus. I'm going to tie it together in a minute, but what's lead mean then? And Phil, I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but if there is anyone on that has a question as we go or a comment, please feel free. If that's our format, so go ahead and raise your hand and we're happy to address it. Webster's online dictionary defines lead as to guide, direct, or show the way, especially by doing this in advance. And I want to call out not to confuse this with lead, which is a heavy metal denser than most common materials. What I've found as a coach is that a lot of our leaders do have quite a bit of lead based on this definition in some of the ways that they've been leading. So more to come on that down the road, but I thought that might give some folks that are here that have worked with some of those leaders a little bit of giggle. A leader is one who has commanding authority or influence, and they're going to rule, guide, or inspire others. And of course, leadership is that position or office of a leader. All right, so energy then, leadership energy, kind of what we're all talking about here. It's going to be the amount of type of energy that leaders generate within themselves and are able to transfer to their teams to actively propel the teams to reach new levels of greatness, rather than draining the team of energy, which is common nowadays. Any questions just on that basic summation of how we got to energy, leadership energy? All right, this is really just for you guys to think about. I'm not going to spend time bringing them to mind, but when we think of famous leaders or famous teams, there's certain characteristics and traits that will be common across all of those teams. And when we think of some of them, the Winston Churchills, the Susan Rosses, there's a lot of different leaders out there that have the energy that was required in that environment with what they were leading and who they were leading to make it successful. Now, really what it's about is why does it matter? Teams so I've been in all those different environments for about 30 years. I came out of business college with huge energy and excitement, looking to learn from the leaders of yesterday and today. And what I found was there was quite a bit of disappointment in a lot of the environments that I was in with the lack of pushing the limits. So, what I've observed are teams are mediocre and leaders have accepted it. Teams that are trying to excel are often drained by the poor leadership. So even teams want to proceed, they want to succeed, but a lot of times they're being blocked by some of the leaders that are using the wrong energy to lead. Leaders, I believe, have a responsibility to propel forward, not allow things to remain stagnant. That's pretty much what leaders are all about, changing the world and doing it proactively. And to stand ahead of today's competition, if we put into a business sense, companies need to be better than mediocre. And today they need teams to do this. Individuals within a company working individually are not going to kind of exceed that mediocre. So for teams to be truly empowered, leaders need to provide the right energy, and then optimizing that team energy will build some team flow and optimize those team outcomes. Optimizing the energy also through effective leadership will provide energy that improves the company outcome, the employee happiness and health, and customer satisfaction, and so many other things that proceed into your personal lives as well. All right, sustainable human energy. And I'm going to hit on just a few of these for the time that we have today, but just like energy that fuels our cars and our home and electricity, sun, water, energy comes in different forms and it can be generated and transferred. The leader's responsibility in my realm and what I've seen is to help optimize their energy as a leader and by example to then be able to transmit it over to their team. Here's a list of sources. There is probably just as many additional sources that could double these bullets, but these are the main ones. And a lot of people misuse these. Healthy food, positivity, gratitude, routines are definitely something that humans that have high energy take advantage of in creating rhythms and momentum. All right, energy builder is just some pictures. Wanted to bring it to a little visual, but things that we often take for granted. Healthy food, knowledge in books, Fresh food, the fresher the food that we eat nowadays, the more energy it's going to give us. The more processed food, the more leftover food, the less energy it's going to give us. In fact, it's probably not going to give us any energy and probably drain us. And then sleep. Sleep is the number one item I've seen overused. Short-term, was there a question? Okay. Short-term sustainable energy sources. In all of the years and in all those environments, I've watched leaders fuel themselves from these short-term sustainable energy sources. And I'll admit, in some of my early years and in a lot of my early years, I was one of those. I started in New York City and there were coffee shops on every corner. So it was very simple to have coffee throughout the day. And it became an addiction and I had to kind of quit, as well as soda and others. But what you learn is that these really just become more and more required to sustain your energy, rather than having that sustainable energy that we were looking for on the other side and with those other bullets. Team energy. So a little bit of lead up to here. I wanted to make sure we all kind of had that basis. But team energy is very similar to other energies in the sense that different teams are going to require different energies. It's the same way that different kids in a family might require different parenting. So even though different teams require uniquenesses from that energy perspective, there are consistencies and patterns that I've observed across all teams in terms of what creates high energy and high motivation to succeed within the teams. And that's a psychological safety, or the opposite, which is lack of fear, trust and honesty, clear goals with an ongoing review of those goals to make sure we're in alignment, clear team agreements, everybody knows who's doing what and when, empowerment, team has the power to make their decisions, commitment, accountability, and empathy. Any questions on all of those? All right, so opposite of drainers, we want to look at some builders, but the most effective teams, and in all of those teams that I've worked with in all those projects, there has been about 3 that leadership has provided the proper energies to allow achievement of high performing. And that, excuse me, in each one of those environments, each team had clear working agreements. They had clear vision and mission. They understood who was doing what. Everybody had a seat at the table. Oh, excuse me. All right. And there was accountability, which is a very big priority to teams when they look at building energy. Energy drains. So basically, we're doing one of 2 things as leaders. We're either adding energy and building it, or we're draining energy and taking it away. So be aware and watch out. It's very easy to fall into the energy draining buckets. But in any event, some to just call out, and these are a lot the opposite of those that provide us energy, but unhealthy food, lack of sleep, unhealthy relationships, negativity. That was one of the most surprising observations in leadership. I expected a lot more positivity, and there seems to be, based on the way that the world has, I think, unraveled, more pessimistic and negativity type leadership that exists in the positivity. And that's what I call a super manager. We're getting the job done, but we're really just leveraging the individuals in our micromanagement manner to accomplish what our goal was, not necessarily what our mission and our objectives are going to be in the long run. Lack of appreciation, lack of physical activities, politics, and the manipulation or lies. And sadly, these exist, and they exist more than I would have hoped to have seen. And the energy that creates those high-performing teams helps remove these energies that drain it. So the more that we can, as leaders, continue to fill our bucket with those high-energy aspects of leadership, the less others around us will be able to continue to do that draining of us and the teams. All right, just a couple more pictures, things that we all love. One of my hardest lessons in life was this pizza area. It's the most delicious food, I think, in the world, but it has really no nutritional value in it, unless we're putting vegetables on it. All right, drains for a team. And this is really, I want to focus more on this. And I can give stories upon stories if we had hours here, Phil, but just to touch on some of them. No responsibility. We've got team members, but nobody is responsible for anything, and everybody might be responsible for all. No clarity, no clearness. Competition. We've got team of 4, but instead of working collectively and collaborating, we're going to compete with one another. And that's not just on a team level, that's interteam. Interteam happens to be, I think, one of the #1 areas I've seen for opportunity in the future for building high energy teams that deliver great results. Lack of trust, and that's, I think, self-spoken. This is a little comic I thought is great, and this was a recent experience that I even had. I would like you to be more self-reliant and show more initiative and take greater personal responsibility, but you're going to check with me first. A little bit of micromanagement. Up here, this is a leader who's got the team frustrated because she's really not clear on what they want and is just asking them to be busy versus be impactful. And then, unfortunately, lately in the world of layoffs, there's quite a bit of fear. Most teams I've worked with probably in the past 10 to 15 years have been under a constant degree of fear for job loss, sustainability, and longevity. So it really does take a number on the team energy as well as the individual and their health and livelihood long term. All right, this I've included, Phil, and hopefully everybody, if anybody wants a copy of this, you can email me and I'm happy to send this to you. But this is Patrick Lencioni's team dysfunction. This is so important because the dysfunction drains so much energy, and the high performing teams that align, some of what he has observed as well over the time is a lot of what I've seen firsthand. All right, moving on, examples. Oops. Okay, so, and the impacts, and the big thing is really around the impacts to the team. Missing or outdated mission or vision statement is very low energy. A clear mission and a vision statement is going to provide clarity, purpose, and empowerment to your team. This is one of the most overlooked areas I've seen in the areas that I've worked in terms of clarity and providing that team purpose. This creates the most chaos when team is unsure of why we're here and who's doing what to accomplish that purpose and objective. Similarly, having aligning goals and objectives to what that mission and vision statement is, and being able to review them regularly. If they're missing, very low energy, if you've got that clear clarity, it's high energy. Again, clear clarity, purpose, and empowerment. Leader defines the team agreement. Those of you in an agile environment know what a team agreement is. I will share with you, there is one of the most successful projects I had was a waterfall traditional one almost 25 years ago. And one of the reasons that was highly successful was we leveraged something that became to be known in agile as a team agreement. Everybody understood within a roles and responsibility who was doing what and who needed to communicate to whom, and what our guidelines and our boundaries were within the realm of the regions that people had responsibility for. It's pretty exciting, but that helps build trust, respect, and accountability. I've been in environments that people make mistakes and they get punished. They get called out and embarrassed. That is very, very low energy and really pulls the team down in a big way. High energy would be owning that mistake, but calling it out as a lesson and being able to grow from that so that we don't make those mistakes over and over again. That really plays into the team's psychological safety. Environments for low energy achievements are minimized. We're so busy that we're accomplishing and we don't stop to pause to celebrate our achievements because we've got another thing that's late and we've got to get that out. Very, very low energy and draining. High energy would be the opposite. We're going to celebrate. Regardless of how busy we are, we celebrate those achievements. And that goes to the purpose and the gratitude. Low energy, creation of silos. We're just going to do this on our team. We're not going to share with other teams. And that exists, you'd be surprised, in large enterprises more than you would see in your medium and your small ones. But you need to recreate rather than borrow and redo and leverage in a lot of these environments. Creation of those high collaboration environments within and external to the team would be the opposite and the high energy. And that drives the connection and even purpose in terms of knowing where you fit in the bigger picture and that hierarchy. Jumping past some of these are just common, team building at the bar versus team building at an entertainment venue has a different leading by example type of expectation in place to health and wellness. Micromanagement is another one of those top, I'd probably say one of the top 3 items that really drain teams of energy. Rather than that, let's have those goals that we talked to up here and have checkpoints and communication throughout, just to make sure we're on track. Low energy workaholism. Here's another trend that seems to be in American leadership, at least, which is awarding and celebrating the hero. The hero being those who work the 12-hour days and come in on the weekends to react to issues that we could have prevented potentially had we been more proactive with knowing where we were going and when we need to be there. High energy would be normal working schedules, being able to have that work-life balance, feeds health and wellness. The final two negative perspectives and comments, again, very surprising here. Super managers are very good with these negative perspectives when teams make mistakes or don't achieve. Leaders are really strong at finding the positivity and the outlooks that are good, even in the most negative events. So positive feedback, and that does serve psychological safety as well. And then the final one I just wanted to call out, and I think we've all been here, we've been empowered to make decisions, and then the leader continues to make our decisions. That's another big energy drain. Being empowered as a team or an individual to make our own decisions provides huge empowerment. And all of those aspects, thrown together, a lot of these I wanted to call out seem very common sense. But in actuality, I think life becomes so busy and objectives are so unclear, even above our leaders sometimes, that things just culminate in a virtual manner up and down the hierarchy in that similar fashion. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. So I'm here to challenge all the leaders in the room and leaders who listen to this video to be and lead the change. Lead by example. You're going to not only be a stronger leader and have more energy, but you're going to inspire the team to drive their individual and their collective change. Go forth, determine what you need to do to make changes. If this was 10 years ago, my list of changes would have been very, very long. We've gone through a number of those in the healthy area and in some of those other bullets we looked at earlier. Then determine what behavior changes are going to be required on the team level, as behavior changes on your personal and your team level. Set that clear mission, the objectives, empower the team, and then lead those changes with the high energy. I am one coach out there. There are so many coaches available in the market that if you do need guidance or support to make this happen, reach out to a coach. It's not somebody you'll need forever. It's actually somebody that I've come to use regularly throughout my career because I find high value in it. But in terms of just kind of bringing focus and finding that energy that's going to be so important to propel that team, it could be just that ingredient that you need to make that difference, to understand and juggle things up, to do something different, to do that going forward. All right, final tips and takeaway, and I'll do this quick, Phil, I'm watching the time. You're adding or depleting energy. Let's add it as leaders. We can't do both, so let's choose the one that's going to help optimize the outcomes of the team and not only make the company better and the outcomes better and the customers happy, but the world better. Better energy will increase your team's productivity and successful outcomes, and then adding better energy increases your team's outlook at reaching high performing. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through this. Phil, can I view the raised hand, or is that something that, I think I can do? Did you have a question?
So that was me, Marianne. I raised my hand. In your previous slide, can you just go back one?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, one more.
Oh, you bet.
Okay. So it's interesting, the last comment that you have here, leader makes decisions, the team makes decisions, and then empowerment. And your comment was, for empowerment, the leader still takes over to make the decision that the team made. So my question is, I used to run a firm that had 300 employees. My comment was always that I was the CEO, but my comment was, I work for them. They don't work for me. But where I want to make sure, where maybe I'm a little confused, is I'm used to, excuse me, I'm used to asking, each team to do what they need to do and come back to me with the recommendations. Mm-hmm. Is someone that runs their operation that way doing the right thing when the team gets together, figure out what they want to do, make a recommendation, but the leader has to make that final decision. So how does that really land for the corporation, that leader has to make that final decision, And if their decision is different than what the team came back with, like, what does that dynamic look like?
Yeah, so it depends on what expectations are set in terms of how that works, Lorette, number
Mhm.
one. So, but if it's an environment that the team understands that the decision process includes recommendations to the CEO, who then has that final authority, that is understandable and isn't going to drain as much energy as if the team thinks they're empowered to make that decision. And then they recommend, propose their solution. And then every single time, the CEO then decides a different solution based
Gotcha.
on what was presented.
Gotcha.
Now, I will say, though, that kind of the context of how it all works together is if there were strategic objectives and goals being set within an agile type of framework, the team should have authority for certain decisions,
I got
and the CEO or the product owner in that specific framework would be empowered to make those decisions. And a
Okay.
lot of the times that product owner is told they're empowered, but really at the end of the day, it's
Mhm.
not their decision to make.
Mhm. I got
I'm
you.
not sure if I answered your question.
No, you did. I guess is really just a nuanced area, but I get your point that if you want to give your team responsibility, but you constantly take it away because you make a decision contrary to what they're coming back to you with, you are then disempowering those same teams.
Exactly.
I got you.
And I had another thought in here in the sense of the teams. The concept here is the teams are closest to the work. So
Mhm.
they have the highest knowledge to make the most relevant decisions.
Point well.
Um, and that's really where the magic happens. Um, Now, if there aren't those clear, well, the piece really is a bottleneck. And I don't want to just assume that in that specific scenario, it was really a bottleneck, Lorette, but anytime that an agile team has a single point of checkpoint per se, that could be a delay, there is always the opportunity for slowdown and lack of that momentum. So by them being empowered to make that decision, they don't have to wait for the CEO to have time to be able to gather all that information and then make that decision and drive it down. They drive it up, and then the CEO supports them until they have a roadblock that they need the CEO's expertise and empowerment to remove,
Gotcha.
type of thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, very good question. All right, so any other questions?
Uh, I was trying to generate questions, but yeah, it was very direct to the point. Like it's a very crystal clear. I don't think if there's a much difference if like the team is working face to face or remotely. Like this idea still works. I believe so.
Oh, absolutely. And there's some different tactics that can be taken from a remote perspective, Phil, but the concepts are still the same. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, oops, go ahead.
Yeah. No. No worries. Yeah. Any questions from our attendees? I'm checking the live right now, and we have got a Shay actually watching, but hasn't placed question so far.
I think we're good.
We don't have questions on YouTube live.
Yeah.
From our attendees, if you have questions, you can type it in the chat, or you can open your mic if you wish to interact. Definitely. And yes, due to the time constraint, I was just gonna ask if, like, in the past, like, was there really like the most unsuccessful like project maybe because of like a low energy leadership, something like that? If you have experience in your past.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Phil.
Uh, Oh, I'm sorry. Let me
Much
just check.
better.
Yeah,
Yes.
am I audible now?
Can you ask that again?
Yes. Okay. I was just trying to ask if, like, in your experience, has there been like not very successful or an unfortunate project that fails because of the low energy leadership?
In my experience, there's been many, many examples of that, Phil, because what happens is the energy drains are just like your health. As you're feeding your health and you're feeling healthier, you gather that energy. And if you're feeling, if you get a germ or you have an illness, you're going to lose that energy. So for me, when I'm feeling really, really healthy, I've got a lot more energy. I'm going to go out and do a lot more. When I'm not feeling well, that energy drain is super low. So it's pretty much the same on teams. And it really was surprising. I want to stay positive minded, but the biggest surprise in all of the 30 years was the lack of collaboration that our today's leaders drive and push to support in that empowerment of the teams. We go through all of this excess cost and time to bring in the right experts and build that amazing team. And then we leverage them individually rather than collectively. And then we make decisions for them rather than let them be empowered to make their own decisions with that closest to the product knowledge type of scenario. So on the counter, I would say if there was enough time, I'd be able to give an example of a great performing team, but I'm looking at the clock. In 30 years and all those projects, there's only been 3 that I would classify and do a case study on as teams to basically follow in terms of their examples. And they all had to do with the leader.
Well, that's because you didn't know me when I was running the bigger firm.
Exactly.
I would have been 4 on your list.
Yes. So.
All right. Well, it was really a great topic that you have shared. Like, you're really talking from the experience, and it's very on point. So thank you so much for that one. I wish we had more time, definitely, for that type of discussion. But yeah, maybe a different schedule. We can do another schedule. So we'll find that time, definitely. So yeah, anything you'd like to promote before we move to the next topic?
I'm not big, just promoting the challenge to the leaders on the call today and leaders who'll watch this video. Be the change. Lead with high energy to drive the energy, not just amongst the teams, but amongst your family and everything that you're leading. And if you need help, reach out to me or Lorette or whomever else that's out there that has really kind of became an expert in this area of positive energy leadership.
And for those who are watching and will be watching this later, you can send connection requests to Maureen Grazer Clinton on LinkedIn and send her a message, definitely. All right, thank you so much for doing the first part.
Thank you.
Maureen, so we'll now move to the next topic. And yes, I guess everybody watching already knows who's going to talk for the second, as she already interacted with the first topic. So yeah, we have Lorette Torres, CEO and Capital Coach, who will talk for the next topic, which is from contact lists to conversations. So crafting connections that count. So this is about the transformative journey that startups and early stage founders must embark on to shift from relying on impersonal investor contact lists to building meaningful strategic relationships with potential investors. Actionable strategies and insights on how founders can enhance their approach to investor engagement to make their businesses more appealing and align with the investment criteria of those they seek to attract. So, our speaker is known as a capital coach, which embodies the essence of leading by example. And she intimately understands the entrepreneurial journey from personal experience and has successfully grew companies, raised capital, and is now planning an exit. And we are thankful that she gave her time right now, maybe just a short of her time to share her experience along with the topic. And for the first part, can you put an explanation to the core concept behind transitioning from contact lists to meaningful conversations with investors to start off, Lorette?
Absolutely. So let me start by saying thank you so much for having me. I so enjoyed what you had to present, Marianne. I'm looking forward to our conversations. But Phil, thank you so much for this opportunity. And just to frame up my conversation, as you all see, I work in this whole business life cycle journey space. In that space, I focus on 3 specific topics: growth by acquisition, getting investor ready, and exit on your terms. So this conversation is under that topic of getting investor ready. And I come from Wall Street, meaning I worked on Wall Street for years. And what I've done after I left was always in this entrepreneurial space that speaks of private equity and, how to really get the capital to grow your business in that framework. And so what I've learned over time, and that's the point of that first question, has to do with a lot of people still look at engaging with investors from the standpoint of marketing, marketing, marketing. So they look to get a list. They look to do one of two things. They look to find someone who can introduce them to investors, and that's become a harder and harder process these days. But on the other side, especially with crowdfunding coming about and being as huge as it is, on the other side, there is that thought that you get a database and you just pound away at that database. Both sides in general, that's fine. But if you really want to get proficient in raising capital, connecting with investors, but investors that are invested in what you're doing, not just investors that's looking for those financial metrics. So what I'm referencing when I say that you want to sort of work with this concept of transitioning from database to relationship, you want to, if you have that database and you're marketing to it, you need to be marketing to it because you've done the research on, what kind of investor makes most sense for what it is that you're doing. You want to do the research to see the type of investments that the investors get so irritated with people looking for capital that's sending them all this information and they don't even invest in that area. You know what I mean? So make sure you're being relevant with those that you're reaching out to. But to develop a relationship, it really is a matter of you want to present your best self, but you want to present your best self in a way that it makes sense for the investor. Is this the type of projects I invest in? Is this founder the type of founder I want to invest in? And we now, because of the new regulations under, the Securities Act, as well as the proliferation of how you can now find investors online, it is so easy for us to do our own research now on the individual investors. And for me, it's you want to curate investors that may not be interested in you right now. Your first round, they may not, even if they invest in first rounds, what you're presenting them may not be what they want to do right now. But if you present yourself the right way, they'll continue to look at you. So building a relationship means you don't just operate off of a database, and if the stuff isn't coming in the right way, you keep moving on. You take that database and you curate the best investors off of that list that makes sense for what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it. So I know that was a long answer to the question, but I hope that nuance makes sense.
Yes. And what common mistakes do startups make when initially reaching out to potential investors?
I find that I believe the biggest mistake that they make is trying to sell to you before they sell themselves, before they know that you're interested in them. What's my example of that? Because of my profile on LinkedIn, my background, what it is that I do, I get numerous connection requests that start with, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I think it might be interesting for you. You want to, invest in me? And my issue is you just connected with me. I don't know who you are. No, I don't want to click the link to read your presentation or do you. So LinkedIn is a perfect place to find investors. But when you ask me what do I think they do wrong to begin with, they haven't learned how to nurture Build that relationship, nurture it before you start asking them for things. And I'll give a little parallel. You just connected with someone, then they ask you to recommend them. How can I recommend you? I don't know you. I don't know what you do, your process, but that's my same feeling when it comes to what do people looking for investors do wrong in the beginning? Their approach. Your approach needs to be no different than I look at people raising capital is that they are selling securities in their business. But my point is they are selling. So I don't care what you're selling. Are you selling stock? Are you selling a product? Are you selling a service? When you first connect to me, you should want to get to know me before you then try to do a sales pitch. So I'm a little, I get a little powerful on that one, but
Exactly.
that's a lesson that I think a lot of founders need to really take in.
Yeah. And in that sense, like how should founders begin the process of understanding and segmenting potential investors to tailor their pitches effectively?
So again, the first step is research. You do your research. I don't care how that person got on your list, but now you want to research them. There are two platforms that I recommend anyone trying to raise capital are working with, and that is AngelList and LinkedIn. LinkedIn has almost, everyone is there. If you're in business, you're on LinkedIn one way or the other, whether you're active or not, one way or the other, you're there. AngelList is for those investors who are truly, investment is a big part of what it is that they do. And so my recommendation is you go over to AngelList because you can research investors. On their AngelList profile, you will see the kind of companies they've invested in, how long they've invested. Like you get to really see some profiles of these investors. Now, AngelList is very similar to LinkedIn. You have to request that they connect back to you. But that's why I like to use it as a two-prong. You go over there to research those investors. You ask them to connect with you. But you do a follow-up over on the LinkedIn side. Hey, I just took a look at your profile over on AngelList. It looks like you invest in companies that look like me. I would just love to have a conversation with you to see, you know what I'm saying? So there is a way to research them to begin with. And let me not leave out. Once you find them, you could go look at their website. You can do research on an investor. Now you know their name, you know their company. What else have they done? You want to look at articles they may have written or blog posts they may have, because all of that gives you a little more information in them. Some people think that's a lot of work. What I will tell you is the better information you have on those that you're trying to connect with, the quicker you will get a connection versus if you just do the mass marketing thing, you are going to spin your wheels over and over again. I can't tell you the countless amount of founders I have engaged with that are irritated that I've been trying to raise capital for the past 2-3 years. And my answer is then think about that. Think about what you're doing, how you're doing, so I could go on. But to answer your question, that's how you start. You figure out who it is that is out there that makes sense for what you're doing, and you work at building a relationship with them, not just marketing. And last piece I just want to say on that, from an investor's perspective, generally, and right now I'm couching angel investors, right? In general, angel investors are going to invest in an average of 10 opportunities annually. Yet they receive, and I'm making up a general number, but they receive 100 pitches per month, and they're only investing in 10 per year. So you think about what you need to do to rise to the top so that you're at that top of a possible investment, not doing all that general stuff that keeps you in that general corral. Marianne, I saw you took your mic off. Did you have a question?
I have a question, but I also have a comment. So something I hadn't shared was I did do a startup. I did a few startups, but one that I raised capital.
Mhm.
And I am quietly nodding as you are explaining because it's exactly what I experienced, Lorette.
That's
I
right.
was able to make it to about 68,000 before I had to step away for personal reasons.
Mhm.
But it was largely family, friends, and
Right.
people I knew professionally. It was people I had existing relationships with,
Right.
not others that I was looking for money from and did not build it. And again, it seems so common sense,
Right.
but yet it takes more energy to go those extra miles to gather all of that information to build the relationship.
Yeah, it
So
does. And let me ask you, so you said it mainly wound up being friends and family. Did you ever reach the point that you were actually reaching out for outside investors that you did not know? Did you start that process?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. And then we also, the question I had is related to crowdfunding nowadays. What is your
Mhm.
perspective on crowdfunding? Because we did use crowdfunding at
Mhm.
the time. It was about 10 years ago.
Right.
But I also found that to be ineffective as well for me.
So crowdfunding, I think, is significant for the early stage startup business.
Okay.
But you also have to come to it any way you want to raise capital, you have to understand the audience that makes sense for what you're doing, right? So even
Mhm.
in crowdfunding, if you have a project, you have to know who might be a likely investor in what it is that you're doing, because you may be on a crowdfunding platform and you believe that the platform is going to drive all this traffic to you. That's not the case. Their expectation is that you are going to do a significant amount of marketing. Now, when they see you have people coming in to what it is that you're doing, then their algorithms are going to do a bit more marketing for you. But
Mm.
until you reach a certain threshold within those platforms, they're not sitting there saying, hey, just put your project up here and we'll do all your marketing and advertising and get you the investors. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
However, that is crowdfunding to me. I come from the industry. I used to run an investment banking firm. Crowdfunding for me is two sides. There are the platforms, which is Regulation CF, that you can raise
Mm-hmm.
capital on, but there's private equity where you put together a private offering. But either one allows you to go after people that you may not necessarily know.
Right.
So as long as you are marketing, as long as you want to interest people that don't know you, that's the road you have to take in building that relationship, getting that, having them get confident in what you're doing, believing in what you're doing. And now let's talk about what that next level could be. Okay.
And
However,
digging to the individual too. That was the other thing that I remember at the time. It was not necessarily time being spent on building that one-on-one,
right.
but the coach at the time really drove home people invest in people
That's right.
more than they're going to invest in some of those ideas. I mean,
And
you need both, but
let me
the
extend
people
that,
is a
people and
critical.
teams. So when you say
Mm,
people, it's that individual founder, but right behind it, it's that team.
team.
So a
Yep.
lot of people think that investors are really just looking at the dollars and cents. Well, an investor, especially a sophisticated investor, knows if you don't have the right team that can pivot because they know that the business plan that you presented is not what your business is going to look like 3 years later,
Right.
right? So if you don't have a team that can pivot, then again, they're going to have concerns about putting their money in because it's not only about the dollars and cents, you know?
Makes sense. Yes.
So now, when you brought up coaches, though, that's part of what I do in coaching folks through what they have to do, how they have to do. The unfortunate part for a founder, especially a founder trying to raise capital, is there are so many things that they do have to do that being able to understand the process from beginning to end, that's what helps them to know what they may have to put in place in order to do that. Because otherwise, raising capital could be a full-time job. Well, how are you going to keep moving the business if you're spending so much of those hours or raising the capital.
So, and a little fun fact, even though I had to step away for personal reasons, I was relieved because I love to coach people and energy. I do not love
Right.
to raise capital. And I found
Right.
the SEC process to be daunting.
Yeah, people need to understand. So
Yeah.
wait a minute. I can have you do my commercial. I'm sorry. Let me get back to my presentation.
You bet. Go
Because
ahead.
because it is, raising capital can be a full-time job. And if you want to build your business, you have to understand that and know the things that need to be put in place. You start with your strengths, and where your weaknesses are, you find systems, people or systems that can fill in that gap.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate your input.
It's a great conversation, definitely. There you go, folks. This is the knowledge and the value you're getting in joining this Let Us Talk It as Zipinar. So, to finish off, can you share long-term strategies like founders should consider to maintain and nurture relationships with investors after investments?
Absolutely. So again, the beginning part of what you're doing when you're reaching out to raise capital, everybody's thinking about their business plan and what the next 2, 3, 4, 2 up to 5 years look like in their projections, right? When it comes to when you're looking at your projections should also be giving you that timeline for when you need that next tranche of capital, right? So generally, if you those first investors that come into your business, you treat them right. What is treating them right? Giving them real information, giving them information in a timely fashion. Everybody needs to understand that no business goes right, and I mean right by way of what those founders or teams want to happen. There are always going to be some level of hiccup. You have to be really honest with your investors. They get it. They know that your business is going to have issues. You don't try to hide it. So when you have problems, you want to be able to talk to your investors about those problems you're having. The however is you do not go to an investor to talk about the problem you have if you also haven't thought through what some solutions could be. Because that's what you're explaining. Here's where we have a problem. This is what the problem could impact. But this is what we're considering doing, and this is how we can resolve that issue. Now, why do you want to do that? Because you want your investors to trust you. And they can't trust you if you're not going to be honest with them. They can't trust you if you're going to hide things that's going on in this company that they've put their money in. So for the long term, what you need to do is look at your projections and what your full roadmap is. And at what points is your cash flow showing you you're going to need another injection of capital? If you treat those first investors that came in the right way, those usually are the first ones you can reach out to as you start hitting any kind of bricks. Why? They have the money into you already. If you're having the kind of problem that money solves it, the decision that those early investors have to make is, do I not help them and let the company fold? Or do I put in, a little bit in that next tranche and move on? But also, if you treat them right, you have an opportunity to get them to bring a friend. You're an investor. You have investor friends. Is there somebody else we could talk to? Or can you be a face of the next message that we do so we can get other investors interested in us? So my point is, when you want to look at your long roadmap, you have to understand at what point, what next point you're going to need capital. And you have to think through, well, what am I going to do in order to get that next level of capital? So for the long term, you have to understand moving your company in the direction it goes, but you also have to understand how to work with any level of investors that you are bringing to the table. An investor understands an investor has a sense of the time frame it's going to take to liquefy the investment that they put in your business. You have to understand then how to manage and leverage that. I
Already.
see that serious thought on your face, but I was looking at the time also.
Definitely. Like it actually feels like there's a lot of discussion to be made still with this area of topic, you know,
Hmm.
because there are cases that it I have experienced if it's like friends or family who's like you're doing investments with, like trust like the trust issues could cause the actual breakage of relationship. Like
Yes.
you'll you'll no
Yes,
longer be a family treated
that's
as
right.
like yeah, it's
You
rich
can't go
because
to
of just that
Thanksgiving dinner.
investment. Yeah.
That's right.
You'll not be invited in any occasions because of that investment issue, no matter how small or big it is. So,
Wait, they
yeah.
will actually send you a uninvite notice.
You never have to come.
Right. But the one thing I would say to you in that respect, and again, the one thing that I counsel people on is you treat your friends and family the exact same way that you would treat other people that you didn't know that's investing in your business. And you have to set that out in the beginning. They have to have the same information, the same paperwork, the same, quarterly, annual reports, conversations. You have to treat them like any other investor. You don't treat them like mom, pop, sister, brother, uncle, cousin, because that's not who they are once they invested in your business. Make it real business, and then maybe that uninvite will be rescinded.
Yeah, exactly. Because I have witnessed here in our let's say the country. So in an area where I live in, like
Right.
there are many families and friends because they have the relationship already, right? So it's easy
Mhm.
to pitch. Like I am working on something like this. Let's just say farming and all that. But yeah, the relationship broke because of like
Mhm.
no, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, like there are no reports or
Right.
explanations what was wrong,
Right.
like anything is happening bad. So
Right.
yeah,
And you can mirror that to think about that's how when you treat an investor poorly, you will never get another penny from them. Either they are going to hurry up and divest if and when they can, or possibly here comes that lawsuit.
yes,
So you gotta treat people, if it's an investment, treat them like it's an investment. Don't treat them like they're just family or a friend.
definitely true. So well, definitely this can go a long way, but yeah, it's already like the time is stopping
Yeah.
us definitely. So it was a really great topics from our two seasoned speakers. So that's what Let Us Talk It is bringing you. And yes, any final notes or anything that you'd like to promote your upcoming launch or business?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I almost forgot. I lead my three topics with mastermind groups. So March 22nd, I have a mastermind group opening for growth by acquisition, getting investor ready, and exit on your terms. I say it together, but they are separate mastermind groups. They start at a different time. But yes, March 22nd, the mastermind groups begin. And just a short blurb, growth by acquisition is all about buying a business. Getting investor ready is all about attracting investors. And exit on your terms is all about when you're ready to exit your business. And for me, that is the business life cycle journey.
Already. And where can they access? Does
You can head over to the website ibossinc.net, ibossinc.net.
All right. And if you wish to shoot Lorette a DM, you can just add her on LinkedIn. So be sure to build your relationship first with her. Definitely to
Don't
have
ask
that
me to
connection in.
recommend you first.
All right. So you have to build that one properly. You have to pitch yourself properly to get that connection accepted. All right. So I'm very glad my message was accepted and this webinar took place from Marian and Lorette. Definitely, this professionals are really great person. So it's hard to find this type of individuals on LinkedIn to get into this platforms. We're not that very big, but definitely we love to share great values. So I hate to say this, but this is the end of the today's webinar, and we hope to schedule a different webinar for this great professionals that we have here. And again, thank you so much, Marian and Lorette, for your efforts, your
Very welcome.
energy, your experience you have shared into this platform, and for those who will be watching this recorded session on YouTube as well. So for those who are watching, or will be watching, we invite you again next Wednesday. We'll be on the same time, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll a little bit late today, but it shouldn't happen casually. So, and yeah, I bid you goodbye for now, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take care as always, and keep safe from Let Us Talk It Team.
Thank you,
Okay,
Phil.
thank you.
Take care,
Okay,
Laura. Thank you,
bye-bye.
everyone.
All righty.
Bye. Have a great day.